Okay, so another day in the bag, and we have just finished, and today was Thursday, January 3rd, 2019, and not that great of a day. Unfortunately, I ended up about down 29 ticks, so kind of a weird day. The thing about today was that I really counted, and I had 12 trades first of all, which was a lot. But out of the 12, I think 9 out of the 12 were the read was correct, the context was correct. What I really had trouble with today was my just basic trade management, and I'll get into this as soon as I show the charts and see what the action from today looked like. But coming into today, we had again this market just continuing to be in this fairly tight balance consolidation area. Tuesday and Wednesday were kind of tested this high side of this balance here, and you can see on this daily here a little bit better. But so we had this yesterday was kind of this day where we had quite a bit of range. We opened low, kind of tested ups above these previous days' highs. And today was, not a real high volume day, but a little bit more back to normal. And let's check the 15-minute and see what we were looking like in the morning. So this is what getting the charts about 6 a.m. this morning. This is what I was looking at. So we got this large move to kind of fill in this we got from Wednesday this really, really huge imbalance move up. So the overnight move tested these lows, came all the way back up to kind of test this original supply zone. And I apologize, it's getting late again tonight, so I may not be that clear-headed, but I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible. And I don't usually like to save these for the end of the night, but sometimes I got other things going on. So, but about 6 o'clock, we're kind of testing up, already setting. We're at the overnight high, and so my expectation here is what is going to happen when we test these highs. Are we going to break out of this previous supply from here to come up and possibly even test these higher highs up here, and then beyond that even higher? Because there's not a whole lot. Because if we break above this previous high from Wednesday, this 47.80 high here, we're looking at, my expectation would be to try to get on the long slide all the way up to 49.30 to these bar lows, and possibly to test the underside of this previous value area here. So that was my thoughts when I was initially looking at this daily and then the initial 15-minute in the morning. So what happened? We were chopping around for a little while, and this is where we go to the 3-minute when I'm looking for setup. So looking at this on the 3-minute as well as my footprint chart to see what's happening. So all the way down from about 6 o'clock on, we're just back and forth in this kind of consolidation, this fairly tight consolidation actually. And so I'm looking to see near the open what's going to happen. So you can see as we come up and test these previous bar highs up here, kind of come back down, and we just chop back and forth. And what starts looking to be happening to me is we have some kind of large consolidation happening here, and more so also like an accumulation by a very large seller. And so right around the open, this is what happened. I'm looking for what's going to happen when we come up and test above these highs again. We're either going to obviously break out above this and continue and have a continuation move to those other highs that I previously talked about, or we're going to fall through this consolidation, probably come down, test this, and then come up and test the lower side of that and move lower. So you can see obviously what my conclusions were. At 7:07, I decided that this was likely we're going to be on the short side, and I'll show exactly why I thought that. You can see this bar here on large volume as well. When we came up above these previous bar highs, we did not continue. Buyers were weak here. They couldn't break out of this. And more likely what happened is those large sellers that were accumulating were taking everything that those breakout buyers were trying to buy. And you can see that play out as well on here. So 7:07, I took the short. You can see this 7:06 was this last test where we tried to break out, and this is the IB high of the session as well, the highest high of the session, the initial bounce, the first hour high as well, 7:06. So when we came above, this is what I call a failed test of price. These previous highs, we came up, failed back down, and as soon as that failed, I'm looking to get short aggressively, and I believe I entered about at 42 or so. So as we can see what happened, price pretty quickly kind of came back down. So 42 down to 32. I was in this trade for about only 2 minutes. So, and this is where my frustration comes in, because, and this is what I like about my reviews, because when I review these trades, I'm forced to say, well, why the hell did I go break even on this trade? Because there was no reason to go break even yet. And I'll tell you why, because I'm trying not to lose. So when this came back down and I felt like I had some room, as you can see, it went 11 ticks in my favor before I went to break even. But still, there really is not much reason unless I identify or see something else happen for me to move my stop from above this high tick failure until we test these lows here. And I didn't do that. And I didn't stick to that. And that's one of my rules. That's how I define when does a trade go to break even. And that is done when we test below an area or a bar low or a bar high that is likely to give my trade protection. And so what happens when I don't stick to that rule, just being in this value area, in this consolidation chop, I get taken out. And I do have conviction for this trade, because you can see at 7:23 again, I get back on this trade. And let's go to the M1, because you can see how it looks, even how this consolidation is even more pronounced. This is that first trade, 7:23. This continues. And now I'm feeling like I'm getting a little bit of FOMO, right? Like I don't want to miss this because it seems to be breaking down and holding this little micro balance, this micro composite area right here. And I get short again. 11 ticks in my favor once again. So when we finally test down to the very edge of this balance, I go break even. And again, I get taken out, break even, unfortunately. And once again, 7:32. This is the final, you'll see these last dying breaths of trying to trap as many buyers in here as we possibly can. So I see this again, and I'm like, I want to be short on this thing. 7:32, I get short again, right around the edge of this value area, which obviously I'd rather be short on my initial entry way up here at 42, much less risk than trying to be on the edge of shorting this. Because what also may happen sometimes is we get a failure of this consolidation zone and then we rip higher. But with what I've seen here in the consolidation and all the volume coming in here, it looked like the likely scenario. And I'll tell you why. What else? If you're a very large seller, are you going to be accumulating way up here to move higher? Yeah, maybe. But that's much more likely to happen. If you were a very large buyer, wouldn't you be accumulating down here to move up? So to be a very large buyer up here is much less likely. And I'll tell you what else, why when you're trying to think like a large institutional trader, what happens when you accumulate as a large seller up here? we always look for liquidity. I'm always looking for liquidity. Where's liquidity? It's what we call a stop cascade. So there's liquidity below all of these areas, all of these consolidations. Every single one of these under here is going to be where buyers are going to stop out here. There's liquidity there, and that liquidity is going to fuel this move down like this. You can exactly see that's exactly what happened. So, it's frustrating a little bit to understand these concepts, and maybe I'm making them up, and sometimes I feel like I'm just completely making them up and I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I see these things and I catch them, and today is a perfect example of being so on the right side of the price action and knowing exactly what's going to unfold, but not being able to manage my trades properly to end up with a bad day, an overall losing day rather than this should have been a huge day for me. I nailed the absolute top high tick failure here to get on the short to take this third trade off at 28. And where did I take it off? Around here, these bar highs. This was the conservative first area as to where we're going to run into. Why? Because there's going to be a reaction, not only from these sellers trying to get out, break even now. So what happens is we come up here, start consolidating off this first leg. And this is what I'm thinking now after this. I'm trying to think about, okay, how do I get back on this short? And what happens to me here, 741, I get short again, which is about right here. And it's a little easier to see on the footprint or the 1 minute chart. 741 is about right here. So what happens, I get a pretty good position here, but then I get high ticked out again here. And that happened to me several times. And I was trying to stay with my conviction on the short side and not get shaken out and give up, because I had pretty good conviction that this was a consolidation for another move down. And 741, you can see here, after this, come back up to this, we had this nice chunk of volume here. I want to be short again there. After pushing above all these bar highs into this volume, I feel like it's worth a shot. But then I de-risk, and I put my stop way too tight right above here, and this takes me out right here. 742.28. That's about right here. So I get taken out somehow right around here on the first one. Then I get long or short again here. And then this is where I get taken out. This move up. 744, I try again. And then this is that takes me out for a 7. And I was so close. 744, 744.09, 744.39 is where this final, the very final. So to be within just one bar, the final last move up before price just dumped. And now, after all these attempts, what I do out of frustration, 751, I start looking for things that aren't there. 751, that's kind of this here. I convince myself that this tiny little push down here of this nothing bar is a failure of this low side of consolidation, and we're going higher. And then I try it again at 801. And just, those are more, I feel like that's kind of just more out of frustration of not, of seeing this price working down and then trying to call the bottom. But that's why I was saying pretty much out of all of these, I only had about 2 or 3 of these trades that weren't the right context read for good trade setups. And these 2 longs were definitely not good. 804, I'm back on the short side. 804, let's get back to them M1. 804, that's kind of up here, and this is again what we're seeing is this consolidation zone before. My expectation is to come and move lower. 804, that's this guy right in here. 804, right about here. Didn't get the greatest position, and I take that off at break even. So again, really before we move below this and test the low side of this little consolidation area, I shouldn't be taking this off at break even, and that's exactly what I did. And 804, if I would have followed my rules and said, where is my actual break-even de-risk? Below this bar low. That's when I should be de-risking. And 819, I try again. Same situation. So why here at 818? Around right in this area before we come down and test this. So literally, let's go back and look on the M1. It's a little more clear. 819 is right here. So I don't really go much above these bar highs to get stopped out, but I still take an 11 tick. So most likely is what happened is I tried to get in at the lows here, somewhere in here. So I shorted this move up right around here, and I took an 11 tick right near these bar highs right here. So instead of giving this a teeny bit more room, and then within minutes, by 8:30, we had another huge, let's see, 47, 60 tick down move. And I took an 11 tick loss on being right on the trade. So that's a little frustrating. Really, I would love if somebody would give me some advice on how to handle this, because to see a day come together like this where I was so right, so spot on with so much of the price action. This 824, I wouldn't say I was exactly right, because I flopped after those previous getting frustrated on again. I think it's more of a frustration trade, trying to get long after those previous stop outs on the short. And what happens here at 847? I get on a long trade on this failure right here, this failure of price here. And that is my signal. And you can see a whole lot more too on the footprint and Bookmap, which I'm not going to show just because I don't want this video to run over and be so long. But at this point, what I'm watching is this volume coming in here, this final test down, and not too much strength from the sellers. At this point, it seems pretty clear that sellers are fairly exhausted. And then we get this nice little imbalance move up at 844, 845 basically. And then I enter back here at about this 85, I believe, 85.90 area was my entry. And then fairly quickly, I get a nice, and this is what happened too on this one. I added a second. After we broke above this, I wanted to try to be a little more aggressive with adding a little more size, another contract to this trade to see if I could get that to play back up. And where was my expectation? The most conservative area for this to visit when we come back up is the underside of this consolidation, and more aggressively where price, I would expect price to come to here, to where this imbalance move down came from. So you can see both of those play out. A minor reaction here, but most importantly right here where you see a large reaction all the way down. So this was my target here in this area, about 50. And unfortunately, just due to poor trade management, and you can see here 37 ticks of favorable excursion I took on this trade, and I took it off break even, unfortunately, which could have made all the difference in the world on my day, you know, minimizing the damage here to at least if I went plus 20 on two lots, you know, when it was at 10 and taken 20, you know, it would have been a much better day. You know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I know people will say you don't need to say those things, but I'm just looking at how to improve my trade management and how this can go differently. I feel good about today, you know, even with the poor trade management, because to put on trades at the very high of the session short, and then to nail the very low of the session long as well, and have the context read as well several times within this down move feels good. You can say that's lucky, maybe it is, but it worked out as per my expectations, and I did trade them. Unfortunately, I'm still managing my trades like an amateur, and I'm not following my rules, because until I can follow my rules to where my de-risks are at predetermined locations, I'm going to continue to have too many stop outs. And also you can say I may have more losses too, because these aren't always going to work out. And sometimes I de-risk when I'm wrong on a trade and it saves me, but I'm here to take the small losses and let the big ones play out. So this first one would have been a 60, 42 down to here, 42. That's 60 ticks instead of 28 on this third one. That's 60 to my first target here. And this is another huge move down. So let's not beat a dead horse, but that's what I got to say about that tonight. And not the worst. I've had some pretty good results lately, but I just feel like I'm so close to just being completely on the right track. If I can keep my mental attitude together, and I felt really bad today, after I turned it off after this last one, and you can see 8:45, I'm done before 9 o'clock. So just emotional. I've been a little emotional anyway since New Year's. Just not knowing, it's just an emotional time. It can be for, what am I doing with myself and what am I accomplishing? Does this make sense? Professionally, personally. So that's how it is. So thank you so much, and have a great night.